Here we go again. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Rugby Scoop podcast. We are live as always. Unfortunately, Vuyo might not be able to join us today, but he said he'll see how he feels. He's a wee bit under the weather. Hugh, I know you're not under the weather, but it's probably still cold in the UK. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, very cold, but nice and sunny at least. I'm doing very well, mate. I'm being very careful not to enter this podcast from the side because I know that upsets you. But I'm sure that Jade and Vuyo, if Vuyo joins us, we'll have half an eye on Manchester United and see how they get on in the big Manchester derby today. So I hope they're not feeling too scared either.
Well, last time Man United played and we were on the pod, I think Man United won. So, Jade, I hope we have all your attention, undivided attention, this Sunday.
Yeah, Scoop. I don't think I'm going to have hopes of Man United, guys. Come on, that's like an Aussie team having hopes of winning Super Rugby, but yeah.
How are things over there in Bloemfontein?
All good, Scoop. Better than Cape Town. Apparently in Cape Town they're upset because the Storm was lost and the Crusaders lost yesterday. So, yeah, but Bloemfontein is better than Cape Town at the moment.
Well, lots of chirps from Hugh from the side. Guys, if you're wondering what the side shows or the side comments are coming from, I posted a thread during the week showing some detail around the breakdown for the Irish team. Something maybe which will become in handy for the English this coming weekend. But anyway, not wasting any time, guys. There's plenty to talk about. There's lots of news going around this week. I mean, for the first time, I don't know in how long, but we have an all-European semi-final in LA for the Sevens. Can you believe it? All-European semi-final in LA for the Sevens this Sunday. We had Super Rugby. We have URC. We'll start off with Super Rugby and then move on to URC. Jade, Super Round this weekend in Melbourne. Disappointing attendance, but the rugby on the field, amazing. Great spectacle. Talk to me.
Yeah, Scoop, look, let's not beat around the bush. I mean, if you were neutral, changing the channel, and I mean, you weren't into Super Rugby and you saw that attendance in Melbourne, I mean, you wouldn't actually be, drawn to watch the game. I mean, I swapped just now when the Chiefs finished playing the Brumbies and I changed to the NRL. I think it was the Broncos and the Roosters played. And they had the Super Weekend in Las Vegas. Complete different, set piece. So really, Super Rugby as an administrators need to make some big decisions when it comes to, getting their market because they're really slipping behind the NRL at the moment. It's not that it matters to South Africans, but I mean, obviously to the competition itself, a lot of competition between Super Rugby and NRL down under. But for the rugby, wow, brilliant. We had 5 really, really good games. One was a little bit of a blowout. I mean, the big one, I think, it was a little bit of a blowout, but very, very good games. I mean, the fixture of the weekend was Moana Pacifica against the Drua. I can start there. What a game, entertaining, had everything, tries, 19-meter tries, it had records, everything, comebacks, everything. And after the game, those guys shook each other's hands like brothers, Well done to both of those teams. I mean, we spoke last week about the Moana Pacifica. I mean, what a team they are this year. It just shows you that, you can have a setup and you can have players, but if you don't have the right structure and the right setup, the players won't gel and they won't benefit from that. And I mean, just look at Stephen Jones and Tana Umanga, Tom Coventry this season, what the difference they've done in that Moana Pacifica they've got more structure. They look much better. They've got a plan. They're playing good rugby. The Drua, I mean, they're still doing what the Drua do, but they really caught the eye of the weekend was Moana Pacifica. The way even when they went down to 13 men, they hung on. At the end, they snapped. They got a big victory. That was actually the fixture for me, Scoop. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that fixture.
No, I think you've covered it pretty much all within that particular game, because the thing is, it was an up and down game in terms of Moana leading, and then Fijian Drua leading, and then Moana taking the lead back. The tries, I mean, that goes without say. The amount of skill level, the ability to break through tackles. I mean, they're big boys. They're big boys, and the amount of carries or the amount of ability to carry within and gain meters as well. I mean, the passing, the offloading, the skill level, the footwork, also set piece. Actually, something that we actually do not maybe take into consideration when we look at the Islanders. I mean, the scrums were amazing. The lineouts and the lineouts were also quite good and detailed as well. So those aspects now seem to be getting into their game, because I mean, I read something during the week about how Tana Umaga is trying to get Moana Pacifica to get more professional in their approach, in their setup as well. But you can see that on the field as well. You saw that last week, even though they lost against the Highlanders, but you can see what they're trying to do. And obviously, it is going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but you can really see the results on the field on how much detail Tana has put into this Moana Pacifica side as well.
Yeah, and special shout out to Tom Coventry and Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones, you can see the patience that he's brought in. The way when they're on attack, they're more patient. They don't throw that 50-50. Even on defense, also they're a little bit more disciplined. I know they conceded a red card yesterday, but I mean, that was Nigel A. Wong was a little bit unlucky there, I would say, because I mean, he turned his shoulder, but it didn't look good on TV. But for the liners and the set pieces, the scrums, I mean, that's Tom Commentary. That's what he does. He's known. I mean, he's an old school coach. He's worked for years with the Blues and in the Auckland setup as well. He's had a few gigs overseas as well. He's a very, very good coach, forwards coach. I mean, he's highly rated. If you listen to a few of the podcasts from New Zealanders, he's highly rated that side. So you can really see that, they got guys in there that's, it's not what they call it, square pegs around in round holes. They got a system there. With William Avili, I think he's just kicked on from the World Cup. He's really grooming into a quality number 10 and learning from Christian Leofano. I mean, you can do what you want at number 10. If you have Julian Savia next to you and you have Nigel Awong, all of those big guys next to you, and Mariko Failangi, tackling on the inside, you can do what you want to as a 10 because you've got protection, So I think really they look well. They look good. For the Drua, unfortunately, this weekend they play the Crusaders, so in Fiji, so that will be a big game. It's just unfortunate, that they had a little bit of a tough start this year. I mean, they must have, wished to have won that game, because that was the game that ended up between the Blues and the Crusaders. But yeah, for them, I mean, they won't panic. They know that, the game is there. It could have went either way. They know what, I mean, they will just pick up from there. But yeah, I'm really, really impressed with Moana Pacifica.
Yeah. Speaking of Crusaders, Jade, it's been 2 games now, and yeah, Rob Penny in a spot of bother. I think he also lost all his pre-season games, or the Super Rugby pre-season games, that is, not the ones where they toured the UK, because I think they beat the Bears, but they still lost to Munster anyway. But yeah, at the moment, the Crusaders, when you watch them, they don't look organized. They don't look disciplined. They don't look like a team that we've known over the years. There's something missing. Obviously, they've lost a big man in Sam Whitelock. That's leadership. That's experience. That's something you really it's not easy to replace. They've lost one of their best, or actually, if not the best, number 10 in Super Rugby history, in Moanga as well, because you can see the ailment, or the lack of ability within the number 10 jersey, where they're not getting any direction. from that, because they've got inexperienced guys. I mean, they have this Kamara kid who literally was playing under 20s last year. He really needs to get, I don't know, some good momentum and also some comfortability into that number 10 position. But the Crusaders at the moment, with guys like Havili playing at midfield, you would expect some leadership. You would expect some experience coming through, especially in midfield. The players that are all blacks who are playing next to maybe an immature number 10, but there was none of it. I mean, what are your thoughts between the Crusaders and Waratahs? Or actually, what are your thoughts about Crusaders currently in this competition?
As bad as the Crusaders were yesterday, the Waratahs were good. They were very good. I mean, their game plan was awesome. Edmund ran that 10 channel. He exposed the awesome Kamara, the partnership there on defense. Even Zavili got exposed as well by letting Gleeson and Gambit, and Jed Holloway and all of those big boys run onto Kamara and make Kamara make one-on-one tackles. And that's where they got over the advantage line. And sometimes they broke, their defensive line from there and they went on. And one thing of the Waratahs yesterday, they sniffed opportunities. I mean, whenever they entered in the red zone, they took points and they moved. If you look at the Crusaders yesterday, I mean, they did some un-Crusader-like stuff. I mean, Avili's charged down, then Avili throwing a 50-50 to Drummond, getting an intercept, which the Waratahs scored from. Before halftime, it was level. They were awesome to just run down the clock and then kick the ball out and into halftime. What he did was 10 seconds before halftime, he kicked the ball out. And Waratahs got a line out just outside the Crusaders 22, and they scored from there, took momentum again forward. That's Crusader. You don't even. I mean, you can't imagine the Crusaders making mistakes like that. For a team to lose, any team in the world to lose, Whitelock, Mwanga, Jack Goodyear, Will Jordan, Lestefina, Nuku, Cody Taylor's not there. So they basically lost their spine. So they're going to take some time to gel and to find the right combinations. Sometimes you'd have as a coach a starting 15, but sometimes together that 15 doesn't play well together. They're going to need to know what combinations work better. Does the really Amua combination work better than the McLeod Amua combination? Do I need to play really maybe a 10 for the next game against in Fiji and get McLeod into the team? Do I need he's going to need to look at certain things there. Rob Penny, I had my doubts when he was appointed as a coach. I really thought maybe somebody like the mighty Ellison should have got it. But he's experienced. He should know what to do. And I mean, they've got a few old heads there, Franks and Moody and Barrett. And so to pick the guys up. The pack is not bad, but I mean, they still look rushed at line-out time. Bial is really struggling with his tail ball, so it doesn't really help. They're not getting, in the red zone. Sometimes they're losing the ball in the line-out time. Sometimes, like Bial yesterday got penalized twice for his break foot. It's scrum time on their ball. That's no coach-killing errors that they're making at the moment. I think for them, they need some time. I think their plan would be just to get into the quarterfinals and take it from there, because they'll obviously be a dangerous team. But they need time, Scoop. They're going to take a while to get used to it without the post-Razor era, because I mean that's been a dynasty. It hasn't just been an era. Razor created a dynasty there, so it's going to take some time for them to get out of that. But let's not take anything away from it. Gleeson, he looks like a young Tote Kefu at 8 for the Waratahs. I really like that kid. The way they played yesterday, they picked themselves up from, getting a hiding against the Red last week, coming back, beating the Crusaders. That's off to them, really, really that's off to them. Edmund, Gleeson, Peach, the winger, they all, the Tars look like they can get something going in Sydney. And I mean, this competition needed a game like this. What benefit would you have by the Crusaders blowing over the Waratahs yesterday? You wouldn't have that benefit in Super Rugby.
100%. I mean, it's really just good to see the Reds also performing quite well. I mean, they were quite close against the Hurricanes. To see the Waratahs beat the Crusaders, which is good. Now Crusaders are 0-2. And then obviously the Chiefs blew out the Brumbies. I mean, but that was a freaking massive display by the Chiefs this morning. Unbelievable. But then the Highlanders and the Blues was also quite a very good game as well. I mean, the Highlanders maybe slipped up here and there, but really competitive rugby. I mean, I'm enjoying the spectacle. I'm enjoying every moment of it. Obviously, there are red cards that are there, and I like the fact that maybe the officials are also being a bit stricter than they were maybe in previous years, because then also there's something the boys will take into the international season as well. I mean, we've seen what happened in last year's World Cup final as well, where Sam Kane got a red card, obviously by a head on shoulder foul play, and I think it was quite similar to Jordy Barrett's red card as well. This yesterday against the Reds, but yeah, something of that sort. But I like the fact that at least the officials element is also just being a bit stricter. Even at the breakdown, they're a bit stricter. You're not allowed to be lingering around that breakdown, so that the teams can get good go forward ball as well. Scrum time, I mean, really not. It's not about the scrums and resets, but they're really strict on if the ball is at the back and the front rows collapse, let's play on, let's move on. There's not going to be any time to be resetting scrums and taking so much time away from the element of the game and the ball being in play and people and bodies moving the whole time and tries being scored. Most importantly, I mean, if you look at the scoreline, everything is over 20, right? Because now, if I'm not going to compare it yet, but we're going to get into it later. Hugh, any games that you watched or that you were quite interested or keen on watching in this Super Rugby round?
I caught the end of some games. So I caught the end of the Drua versus Pacifica game, which was quite like a game of sevens at the end, but I really enjoyed it. Drua versus Pacifica is always very high score lines on both sides. So I don't know whether they have a word with each other before the game and say, look, guys, let's go out and let's enjoy ourselves today. You can really, really sense the passion in both teams coming through the TV as you watch them. So I enjoyed that. And then I was watching Crusaders versus Waratahs, and Waratahs obviously got in the lead. And I messaged Jade and said, I've seen this game 10 times. The Waratahs are going to go into the lead, and then the Crusaders are going to score 30 unanswered points in the second half. And Jade said to me, no, Hugh, that's not going to happen. The Crusaders is a different team. And I was like, yeah, right, we'll see. But then he was right. So there you go. Definitely feels like the whole competition with the Crusaders falling off like this, it feels like the whole competition is in flux now. And obviously we would expect the Chiefs and the Blues to fill that gap. But yeah, it just feels like a massive change. I want to know what you guys think of Golden Point. I feel like if it's a draw, it's a draw, why do we need to have this Golden Point thing? Is it that entertaining, really? I don't know. I don't feel a need for it personally.
I love the Golden Point, obviously taken from the American way of doing things. If you watch NBA or if you watch NFL, they never have draws. So every time game is, if the teams are equal by full time, there's always overtime. And overtime is ongoing until someone scores the winning points. So with them, it's mostly about the Golden Point is mostly about whoever scores first after overtime. But obviously, I mean, I don't know. Draws are, I don't know, quite disappointing, to be honest. If we are really being honest, a 0-0 draw in football also very disappointing.
It wasn't 0-0. It was 33 points each.
No. But I'm just making an example. A 0-0 draw will be. I mean, why? What's the point of drawing? Can we get a winner? If we get a winner, we get good points. No one is sharing the spoils. But yeah, that's just for me. I enjoy at least someone winning a particular game. I mean, especially if it's one of those teams, or one of those games where there's like a big rivalry or there's so much at stake. For example, if you're watching hypothetically Stormers versus Bulls, for example. I mean, I don't think anyone would want a draw because of what is at stake, because of the rivalry, because maybe the Stormers have beaten the Bulls for so long, and if the Bulls were so close and they only end up in a draw, I mean, it just leaves a sour taste in the mouth for some reason. But yeah, I get people that probably wouldn't want that. But for me personally, I really enjoy at least a result in a game. I mean, a draw is a result, I know, but getting someone to win, I think for me that takes the cake. I don't know what Jade feels about overtime or the Golden Point element.
Nah, I enjoyed it this morning, Scoop. It was I really enjoyed it watching it as a neutral because obviously, I support the Blues, but I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, the Reds were unlucky actually at the end because I really feel that I think it was Peter Lakai never rolled away with that turnover made in front of the poles, and Tom Liner, he looks like a talent at 10 really for the Reds. I think both of them, Edmund and Liner, really looks like two flowers coming through there. But I enjoyed it. It's entertaining. It's fun. So I think it's something that can be applied in Super Rugby. I know the IRB won't look at that laws, but yeah, Scoop. The way you said it before you went to you there and you spoke about Super Rugby sounded just like JK. So are you gonna campaign for him to be president of the IRB or what? Because the way you were saying, speaking of the scrums there, and speaking of the entertainment, and everybody's enjoying the game. Looks like you in JK's corner in terms of the rules that he wants to bring in. But yeah, so far this weekend, good rugby from Super Rugby. It was very nice, entertaining rugby. And we look forward to next week because next week is again a few diggers there.
Yeah, 100%. A very good weekend of Super Rugby. Just to give you guys the scores for this weekend, Super Rugby: Hurricanes 38, the Reds 33. That's the overtime game or golden point game that Hugh was referencing to as well. The Chiefs 46, Brumbies 12. Crusaders 24, Waratahs 37. Big one for the Waratahs there. Moana Pacifica 39, Fijian Drua 36, which was a great game of entertainment, which you referenced in our conversation as well. Rebels and Force, Rebels taking it 48-34, and then Highlanders and Blues, Blues taking that one with 37 points to 29. Guys, this weekend, URC kicked off, and obviously there was a big game. I think for me, big game of the weekend has to be the Bulls versus the Stormers. We've got someone from the UK who really appreciates what Jake White is doing over there in Pretoria, Highveld. And obviously you had 60,000 people at the stadium, great atmosphere. Zombie was one of the headline songs, apparently. And obviously the Bulls taking it away from the Stormers. Hugh, the Bulls are marching on. Talk to me.
Scary. They've got everything. It was a fantastic event, and by all accounts, with the delay to the kickoff that I thought might take the edge off it. It was confusing here in the UK because it wasn't clear what the delay was for or what was going on. But once it did get kicked off, yeah, just absolutely fantastic. Great to see those huge crowds. Absolutely unbelievable to get that for a regular league match, just a big derby. Stormers obviously come into it. It's a weird dynamic because the Stormers are kind of like the darlings of South African rugby. They're kind of like the biggest drawer of crowds. They got the superstars playing for them, but the Bulls kind of took them apart. I mean, the Stormers were pretty poor in the first half, I thought, and I thought to be within 4 points at halftime was quite surprising. But then they just couldn't hang with the Bulls for the full 80. And yeah, I'm massively impressed. I was looking at some old highlights of some games two or so years ago with the Bulls and their progression from then until now. Yes, they've spent a bit of money on players, but it's money well spent, and they're bringing more players back. I can't see anyone going to Loftus and getting a result anytime soon. And I think they're very much, Leinster have got to secure a home game, because if it's a home final for the Bulls against Leinster, I think the Bulls are going to win it.
Even if it's a home final for Leicester, I think the Bulls have the potential of winning it. Jade, you saw it happening at Loftus. Talk to me.
Yeah, no, look, the Bulls were awesome. I think a guy like Ambrose Papier had another storming game yesterday. I mean, surely Rassi has to think about him. I mean, he's mature. He's playing good rugby. I mean, I think I was chatting to Scrumming Flower a few days ago, and we were talking about him. And I think his inclusion came into the Bok team came at the wrong time during the Alistair Coetzee era. But I think he's ready now. I think he is one that Rassi can really include in that squad of his. But yeah, the Bulls were awesome in the first. They started well. But then they allowed the Stormers back into the game, and let's not beat around the bush. There was a moment in that game, even Roos knocked the ball on, short on the line. If we look at it nicely, the Stormers had to score there. They would have been 4 points or 3 points behind with 5 to play, tails up. I mean, it's a completely different game. It was a 10 to play or so, but I mean, they almost threw it away, but they came back. They won convincingly at the end. Curtly Arons, like I said, Papier, the loose forwards. Marcel Coetzee had a good game. Nokia at lock, that was awesome again. For the Stormers, it's not all doom and gloom. They'll still be in there. I don't think they'll get a home quarterfinal, but they should be in the quarterfinals, and I think they should make their way to the semi. And their team also that don't fear anybody on their day, they can beat anybody. Just I think I picked up yesterday, and interesting actually. I seen yesterday was Manie Lebok's 4th game in the URC this season. It's actually strange because I thought he might have played more this season. Okay, I know there was a World Cup and they had post-World Cup celebrations or so, but I mean, just shows you that the Stormers do have depth in their squad, because guys like Manie Lebok and Willems didn't play that much this season. So yeah, it's actually interesting to say that Manie only played 4 games in the URC this season.
Yeah, go ahead, Hugh.
Yeah, I think it feels like more because Manie's been playing in the Champions Cup. So that kind of adds to his game tally. I want to ask you guys about Goosen, the Bulls fly half. It feels to me like I'm going to be harsh here, it feels like he's a bit of a weak link in the team at the moment. He's kicking his goals, but I just feel like that's something that they could add to. Do you think the Bulls could be in the market for a new fly half sometime soon?
Oh man, that's typical Jake White. I mean, he's really not looking for a flashy fly half. He really wants someone who's steady, someone who, yes, he might look like a weak link, but for Jake White, someone who's steady, someone who's mature enough, someone who can actually get those points. Because I mean, they had Steyn also before. Yeah, I mean, Steyn is a sharpshooter. He's accurate at goalposts, and obviously with Jake's type of rugby, penalty, we go for a shot. It's pretty much similar to Springbok style of rugby. So he'll basically give you a stable performance. He won't be risky. So the less risk a fly off takes, the more chances Jake White will pick you over a fly off that probably takes risks. Just maybe a short summary of how I'm understanding how Jake White coaches. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe Jade can jump in as well.
So how long is left on Andre Pollard's contract at Leicester Tigers?
Very close, actually. Very close.
Yeah, I think that's the one. Maybe Pollard do come back. I think obviously it's a no-brainer. If his contract runs out there, if he doesn't go to Japan anyway, he'll come back to Pretoria. But I mean, I don't think the Bulls would mention if they were in the lookout for a fly-off, because they're scared the Sharks might just sign him. But yeah, I think for Goose, he had a good, okay game yesterday. The thing is, of Goose, he's injury prone also, so he doesn't really get a good run, and then he's injured. This season has been a little bit different. Obviously, when Willie came on, they took some pressure off of him. That's obviously Willie is influential in this team. But for me, I think Jake White will stick it with Goose and Smith, for another season or so, and then look in the market who is available. Who is available besides Pollard, I'm not sure, because I mean everybody else is relatively settled in terms of 10s in South Africa. Even the young guys coming through are already at the Bulls, the promising number 10s and then the 19 or 18 level are at the Bulls already. So, that's something to have a look at there. But yeah, for me, for now, I think it's okay with Goose and Smith, their combination, and they'll take it from there.
Yeah. I just wanted to continue with you, Jade, on this one. There's a particular point that was made by, I think, Dion Fourie about Stormers making stupid mistakes. But what do you think of the forward packs of the two sides? I mean, the Blue Bulls basically dominated every facet of play on Saturday night in terms of the mauling, the lineouts, and some of the scrums too. Because I mean, you've got Gatland for sure, who's been very good at the Stormers, and the Stormers have had a very solid scrum. I mean, if we go back to Stade de France, where they literally obliterated Stade de France away from home, especially at set piece time, and then
Stade de France top of the top 14, by the way.
Yeah. And now basically the Blue Bulls making them look ordinary. What are your thoughts on the forward packs on Saturday?
I wouldn't say they made them really look ordinary at scrum time. I think scrum time was a little bit of a 50-50 at times, because Gatland also won his fair share of penalties as well. But in terms of your lineouts, the Bulls read their lineouts. I mean, Joseph Dweber struggled. Then Andre Hugo Venter came on and he lost his first ball as well in the lineout, so he also struggled. So I think the Stormers really need to iron out that line. You can't, for me, you can't be losing important and crucial lineouts in important times during the game. For me, it's coach killers. In terms of the loose trio, if I look at it, the Bulls did miss Erich Low and Hanekom yesterday, but they still had the upper hand with Eskom and Marcel Coetzee, and who played 7? It was Ludwig who played 7. But yeah, they're upper hand there as well. But I mean, they scavengers, And if you look at the way the Stormers set up with Taimani, Roos, and Baranas with Dion Fourie, Taimani and Roos are similar type of players, They like to be loose, big ball carriers. So obviously, they maybe Job Dobson needs to tweak his setup there as to how those two play together. He'll look at it, integrating that two together. But I wouldn't say the Stormers really struggled up front. The first 20 minutes, the Bulls blitzed them, and then the Stormers got a foothold back into the game. There was a few good 50-22s from Gatland and from Nullabok settled into the game, and then they got back into the game. But I mean, there was coach killing errors that they made. I mean, like I speak, the lineouts. Dweeb's got to learn. He's got to come right now. I mean, we can't be every weekend be moaning at Joseph Dweeb's lineout frame, because that cost him a spot in the World Cup. This must probably cost him a spot in the Bok team. Andre Hugo Venter is doing the same thing. Although when he did come on, his loose play was well. He was all around the park. He was carrying well. He was going everywhere. But I mean, yeah, that's how I see it. And also, Scoop, I know guys on here might argue with me here, but there was a big drop off the way I looked at it. The props, when Klopper came on and Brock Harris came on at Lucid for the for the Stormers, and Klopper came on for the Bulls. Now, obviously, I only saw it from that side because that was the angle that we saw on TV. But there was a big difference between what we saw with Steenkamp and with Gatland for sure, and also with Wilco Low and Stole. The shape and the way they scrum, the way they kept their body, and the way the scrum was the battle. When Klopper and Harris came on, Klopper really buckled up with Harris. I really saw there was a few times that if the referee was brave enough, he could have penalized Klopper a few times. So something, if you're going into the semi-finals and finals, that Graham Roundtree and Jacques Nienaber will look at it and say, okay, we can milk a few penalties on this reserve tight end over here, because he's not that strong scrummager, he's inexperienced. We can get his elbow, we can get him to collapse, we can get him to hyperextend by doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So that was something that, I did look at yesterday in terms of the packs, but obviously I didn't see it from the other angle, from the loose set, from the Bulls, the Stormer side, and from the Titan, from the Bulls side in the second half, because of the TV cameras here.
No, fair, 100%. Hugh, I don't know if you also watch maybe on the tactical side of things, but I feel that the Bulls came up with a plan, a very simple plan. Get good mauls, get good scrums, don't play too much in your own half, try and play into the Stormers' half and convert those into points, territory into points. But another aspect that the Bulls were quite good at, or maybe noticed the Stormers are not good in the air or aerial skills, because the amount of times the Bulls kicked up and unders in that game was hectic. And the amount of times they put Warwick Gatland under pressure and on those 50-50 balls, because I don't remember seeing him catch even one ball. I mean, how good is it that they get to expose one frailty or one weakness within that Stormers pack, within the Stormers aerial skills.
Yeah, it's obviously something that they've spotted. I find that the Stormers kicking game is quite erratic. It's quite risk heavy. They like to take risks, and they sometimes get themselves into trouble, and they back themselves to have the talent in their backs to get themselves out of trouble. But I think when you come across a team as good as the Bulls, you need to have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
I think their kicking game is a lot better when they get Sasha on the pitch. I think he's an unbelievable kicker from hand. Warwick Gatland, we all know about him. He has his moments where he's incredible. He has his moments where you just think, what is he doing? But yeah, and I think someone said to me that they think that the Bulls have the best back three in the whole URC with Moody Ahrens, who obviously can play fullback, and then Villy LaRue, who they actually had on the bench in this game. So I think that was a clear area of strength that the Bulls have. Just going back more generally about the Bulls and what you were saying about Jake White rugby. If you look at their tries per carry stats, they're ridiculous. Compared to everybody else in the URC, most people are between 30 and 40 carries per try. The Bulls are like 20 carries per try. It's like a third lower than everybody else. They only play when they have to, and they make it count when they do. It's pretty remarkable.
100%. That's why they call you the stats man. All right, gentlemen. Enough with the Bulls. There was thunderstorms in Johannesburg, but the Sharks are really under the weather. We expected more this weekend, but it seems to have dropped off, and they're really under the weather. Bongi Mbonambi came back. Guys, to be honest, for me, when I watched this game between the Sharks and the Lions, all I could hear or all I could see was Bongi Bonambi standing to the referee the whole game, basically. Jade, let's start with you. What are your thoughts with this particular game? I mean, there was really nothing exciting for me, to be honest. I think after like 35th minute or so, the first time they scored, or the next score in that game, came around the 63rd minute. So from 35 minutes until the 63rd minute was a really big gap of just going through a lull, for lack of a better word, for both teams. There was no one trying to score. There was no one who was trying to be innovative. There was no one trying to give different pictures. But yeah, eventually the Sharks maybe fell off because of the high felt or whatever, but they kind of fell off after the 63rd minute, and then the Lions started scoring, and obviously they put up 40 points eventually. But yeah, Jade, your thoughts about this game?
I think it's not all doom and gloom for the Sharks, because the new signings of next year actually tore them apart. So the scouts have did something well, and signed some good players from the Lions. But yeah, that's a normal case for them. But you know what, guys? Are we going to complain about the Sharks every weekend? When are we going to come to our senses that Plumtree is not the guy for this job? He should have never gotten this job. He was bad. Like we said it when he's over the hill. For the Lions yesterday against the Sharks, they beat him twice now. They beat him at Kings Park, and they beat him now at Ellis Park, and they gave him a proper ID yesterday. If you're beating a team by 40 points after the game, please do not moan about officiating if you're the losing captain, because take the L and move on. I was a little bit, I wasn't impressed with Bongi yesterday. Being a senior, Springbok, I captained the box a few times the way. And tell you honestly, I'm not saying this because Amy Baratheron is a female. I'm just saying it's in the referee in general. We don't need this way. He was complaining of the referee after the game. He had a few things to say as well. We don't need this in the game, especially from a senior bok. I mean, Bongi should have just got on, rallied his troops, tried and done the best for the Sharks, because they are in a horror spot at the moment. I mean, they tried to shake things up yesterday with a new 10-12 combination that didn't work. They've just got a toxic environment in Durban, guys. We have to admit it. They need a new, maybe just getting Plumtree or so out, getting somebody new in, a fresh start. I don't know how they can turn things around, because every weekend it's the same thing with the Sharks, and they got a proper idea yesterday. Nohamba was brilliant once again. The Lions, their unit, they really eyeing spot in their quarterfinals, and for what they've been and the way they punched above their weight this season, I mean, we've heard 2 seasons ago the stories of, having hot dogs for lunch to cut budget and stuff on tour. I really hope they can make it into the top the top 8. But yeah, I mean, we can't complain about the Sharks every weekend. They got a toxic environment there. From the top right down, we need to sort it out. And yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Hugh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you'd have to call it now. It's been, how many games have we played in the URC now? 11 plus the European matches. I think you'd have to say John Plumtree, I'm sorry, mate, it just hasn't worked. We need to find a new solution now. With the selection, it looks like they were going, maybe having all the Springboks is the problem. Maybe if we take the Springboks out, that will solve it. And no, that didn't work either. Lions, just fantastic for them. As Jade said, just the big underdogs in South Africa, and it's fantastic to see them get a result and a big result. And see, so they've got some cult heroes growing over there now with Mhlaba Kanye and Sanele Nohamba, of course. I don't think they'll miss Hendrickse too much if they've got that guy who's able to play in both positions. I think it's interesting for the Boks now because you've got these flair players playing all over the URC, and it's great to do that at URC level and you can get away with it. But once it transitions to international, Sanele Nohamba isn't going to have the time or the space, and if he makes one bad decision, he can be punished at international level, and you could see that he gets dropped from the team for just one bad mistake. So that'll be an interesting storyline to follow. But yeah, just delighted for the Lions, and it would be fantastic if they could get into the top 8. They're currently 11th, but they are 3 points off 8th, and they've played most of the other South African teams. That's out of the way now. So they're going to be inviting European teams to South Africa, and you would back them to be favourites in most of those. Big game against the Ospreys away in Swansea coming up. But yeah, just a great story all round, really.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the log, gentlemen, Stormers are out of the top 8 at the moment, but obviously I'm sure that won't be too long. We've got number 1, Leinster, Blue Bulls at number 2, Glasgow Warriors, number 3, Edinburgh 4, Ulster 5, Munster 6, Connacht 7, and then Benetton at 8. Benetton have really dropped way too low in the past couple of weeks of the URC. Hugh, there's also other results, obviously, within the URC, but which game in particular up north did you pay attention to? We know the Scarlets took a hiding from Connacht, but which other games did you pay keen interest to in the URC in the UK?
Yeah, I didn't really want to talk about the Scarlets too much. We're still rubbish. Other games, I watched Edinburgh versus Ospreys, which was not a great game. I tell you what, going from watching that to watching Drua versus Moana Pacifica a few hours later, that was a culture shock. It's like 2 different sports. But yeah, Edinburgh did their best to throw that game away, but unfortunately, Ospreys just weren't good enough to capitalise. I watched Cardiff against Leinster. You would think that would be a mismatch, and it kind of was in the end, but Cardiff were winning at half-time, which was a bit of a surprise. So that was good to see. And Cardiff starting to get their act together a bit now off the pitch. They've got the new owners with the new money, and they're starting to spend it sensibly, which is a first for Welsh rugby, actually money being invested off the pitch rather than on it, which is something that we don't tend to do. So that was good to see. Other than that, Glasgow got a big win over in Benetton, like you say, so that would be a massive missed opportunity for Benetton, missing a lot of internationals, obviously, but still able to field some big players, and big missed opportunity. You'd see them now down in 7th or 8th, hanging on really to a playoff spot from looking very comfortable just a couple of weeks ago to now looking a bit precarious. It's a tricky one, so they're going to have to hope for a big run of form when their internationals come back. Other than that, yeah, no other real surprises. Zebra got 29 points over in Munster, so that was a good result. It finished 40 points to 29 to Munster, which is kind of sounds like a bit of a battering. Argay Simon absolutely tearing it up, pulling out this offload game out of nowhere. But fair play to Zebra for getting 4 tries away in Munster as well. That's no mean feat. So big signs of improvement from them, really.
Fair enough, fair enough. Hugh, sticking with you, news coming from up north, eligibility laws. It made headlines the whole week of last week. I mean, your thoughts? I mean, there's been plenty of players, obviously, part of the Six Nations currently. Some of them, obviously, not born and bred in the particular countries they represent currently, but most of those players have plied their trade in those countries, played for the clubs. They've got homes, they've got families, they've got their children growing up in those regions, and now and obviously as a bonus they get to represent either Ireland or Scotland, and now some Welsh players is playing for England, etc. I mean, jeepers, tongue twister, eligibility laws. I mean, do you have an issue with this current situation that we're in from a general perspective as a rugby fan, rugby person yourself, stats man? I mean, what are your thoughts regarding this?
No, I don't have a problem at all. I think it's just the English moaning because they lost a game. Look, the Bundyaki has lived in Ireland for 10 years. I think he's allowed to represent the Irish national team, to be honest with you. Duan van der Merwe may seem like an extreme case, but he's lived in Scotland for long enough and he calls it his home. I think someone made the point of, like take Cameron Hannacombe, for example, when people were saying he's got a Welsh grandmother and he was eligible to play for Wales. But I don't think people would have spoken much about that because he had a Welsh bloodline. But you'd argue that if someone had maybe been born outside Wales but lived there for 20 years, has got more of a claim to it than he does, as an example. But I don't really have an issue with anything at all. Like I say, I think it's just the English moaning because they lost. If you take someone like Manitou Alagi, is obviously Samoan, but no one's complaining about him, and I'm not either, by the way. It's a boring conversation, to be honest, and in the UK especially. Like, to be honest with you guys, so I born and grew up and live in England. My dad's side of the family is Welsh, but in the UK especially, it's a completely stupid conversation to have because you don't even need to have a passport to move between the different countries, or three different countries, I should say. You can move house for work. I work with a guy he works in England, but he lives in North Wales and he commutes every day. Because you can just do that. It's three countries, but it's also four countries, I should say, but also one. So eligibility between England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. It's kind of a daft navel gazing conversation, to be honest. So I think it's boring, to be honest, this whole conversation.
Yeah, fair enough. Jade, your thoughts?
Bro, I support New Zealand as well. So, I mean, they've filled with Tongan and Samoans and Fijians. So, I have no problem with the eligibility laws. I
think Scrummaging Fly Half on the call had a good point.
Scrummaging Fly's an idiot. You know what? He's an idiot. He's just an idiot. But yeah, I have no problem with it, guys. You know what? Listen to this. So you have Leinster and you have Munster and Ulster and all of those guys, and especially in Scotland, it's only two franchises with Glasgow and Edinburgh. So the Scottish Rugby Union should give, those franchises, or the Irish Rugby Union does give those franchises some form of money, So obviously they're investing in players, they're investing in the clubs, and the clubs will basically, what the money they get from the union, they either do central contracting or they do, they pump money into the club, and the club tends to buy players from other countries. And if the player is good enough after 4 years and he's not called up by his country of birth, let him play for that country. Let him play because, the investment was made by that rugby union. So I have no problem with it, guys. The problem I do have is guys leaving at the age of 18, 19, going overseas, especially to Africa. That's one we got to watch because if guys are going to do that, we're going to get so much more South Africans playing for France, England, and they overseas because there's one we really need to watch. And I think Rassie Rasmussen, SA Rugby needs to watch that because that can get little messy, especially if we're getting guys signing from Craven, going to Montpellier or, clubs in France and not playing the rugby in South Africa. That's a problem. But guys leaving here and going that side, like to Brad Shields, like to Duan van der Merwe, I have no problems.
That is fair. Fair enough, gentlemen. Guys, this weekend coming up next week, we've got the Six Nations back in action, but there's a few guys that are making headlines. Warren Gatland, Sean Edwards. I want to start off with Sean Edwards. Sean Edwards comes into the French coaching staff, does miracles for the past 3 to 4 years. Now, 2024, or fast forward 2024, France in a spot of bother, not really performing at optimum level, but everyone seems to be pointing fingers at Sean Edwards. He's the defensive coach. He's been the one that's literally put France on the map in terms of what has transpired over the past 3 to 4 years. Your thoughts regarding this particular aspect?
I think Sean Edwards is getting the finger pointed at him because he's the outsider. He's the foreigner. He's the Englishman in the French setup, and they're losing. It's amazing what losing does to a set of people. You know, when you're winning, everything's fine. When you're losing, everything's not fine. And that's just the way it goes. Every fan base is the same, every single one. So Sean Edwards hasn't become a bad coach overnight. We know his defence works. So his defence still holds the record for Wales. We conceded 2 tries in the whole Six Nations in 2013, I think. Or maybe 2012. Anyway, one of those. Absolutely unbelievable. He's a great coach. If he leaves France, he'll get another job instantly. If they want to point the finger at him, fine. But I think it's just a case of the French are losing and someone's got to take the blame.
Yeah. 100%. Jade?
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't put the blame on Sean Edwards. I would stick with what I said a few weeks ago. The problem in the French division now, again, or in the French team, is the players are not bringing the top 14 and the club form into the national team. So there's the problem there. It's obviously we need to look at that environment, the French environment. Is the players, do they enjoy that environment? Do they rather prefer to be in a club environment? Because that's always been the problem with the French. And maybe, Gautier, maybe he's gone 4 years too long, or maybe he's gone a year too long, and it's time for him to go instead of just pointing a finger at Sean Edwards. I'll just look at the whole attitude of that team. Do they want to? Are they bringing the same club form into the national team? Because, I mean, if you look at the way Bordeaux plays and you look at what Locou and Penaud was doing in the French team compared to Bordeaux, was completely different. So, yeah, for me, that's the problem. But, I mean, obviously, take any team and you take your 3 best players out there. So you take Aldridge, you take Dupont, and you take Tamak out. You're going to suffer, you're going to struggle, no matter what depth you have. So French also need to look at that. They took their 3 stars. 3 stars are injured at the moment or not unavailable.
I will say as well, Sean Edwards is the defence coach. And yes, Ireland scored 5 tries past them, but Ireland are the best team in the world. Scotland and Italy scored 1 try against them each. So how is it the defence's fault?
Yeah, that is a very good point, because I was also thinking with regards to how passive the attack is currently, because obviously without Dupont and Tamak and some of the players that Jade mentions, they do look really fragile on attack, and also lack of creativity and innovation in just getting their forwards good front football, and also just understanding each other as well. I mean, Dante hasn't really looked the same. You've got Fiku, who also hasn't really looked the same. Penaud, I don't know what has happened from being a golden boy, golden winger who's scoring every other weekend, to someone who really looks ordinary. Like Jade said, when they play for Bordeaux, the guys are really razzle-dazzling, but when they come into the French camp, they really look out of place. Maybe motivation is one of it as well. Maybe also Gaultier needs to probably look at himself first as well, and also try and see obviously where the problems are. They almost look like the Sharks team currently. If we look at France and the Sharks, they currently look like teams that are playing similar type of rugby. I mean, not really enjoyable to see them in these positions at the moment. There's also Warren Gatland, who's saying quite a lot of things in the media currently. And one of the scribes in the UK said something about, Warren Gatland is probably the one person who got Wales rugby out of a pit, but now he seems to be the person that might bring Welsh rugby into the pit. Well, Warren Gatland said the regional rugby is a sinking ship and is not 100% convinced that a much needed reset will happen. What are your thoughts with what Warren Gatland is doing over there? I don't know why is he getting so much attention, and why is he saying so many things in the media? What is happening over there?
Well, he's saying things in the media because he's doing press conferences and he's being asked questions. I don't have much of a problem with what he said in the press conference. I think his comments were taken massively out of context by the headline writers. Basically, in Welsh rugby, the WRU has been this massive mess, complete dysfunctional thing for years, but that's kind of distracted people from how dysfunctional and how messy everything else was. So my team, the Scarlets, was the best funded team in Wales for years. We had a playing budget of 7.7 million for years. Now look where we are. Like, that money was completely wasted, and there were bad decisions made by the people at the top of the club. And it's exactly the same for all the other regions, with maybe the exception of the Dragons as well. Badly run, bad decisions made at the top of them. So if you were to give the Welsh regions £1 million and say, there's £1 million, go and improve yourself, would you back them to invest that in badly needed off the field resources, or go out and hire the best coach or the best defence coach or the best strength and conditioning coach in the world that they could get? Or would they go and spend it on a 35-year-old former international who's getting their last paycheck? You know, you wouldn't trust them to spend the money wisely. So I think, Gatland hasn't always had a perfectly functional relationship with the regions, and I think that goes both ways. But I think it is fair that someone holds the region's feet to the fire and says, you're asking for all this extra money. If you want extra money, you need to show that you know how to spend it and you'll spend it in the right way. Because if you're just going to spend it on giving old players fat contracts, that's not how you should be spending the money. And I agree with Gatland when he says, forget the players, spend the money on the coaches and the facilities, because that's where we need to make up the difference.
Very interesting. All right. I guess Gatland then has been taken out of context from what I'm hearing, basically. Are you guys keen on having Reece Peschel back in Wales?
Look, he's playing a lower level of rugby. He wouldn't be looking this good in the URC, I'm telling you.
Very, very funny. Oh, man, he's razzle-dazzling at the Highlanders. He's in the short form of his life. It would be nice to see him getting back into Welsh footy in the next season or two.
Well, we're touring Australia in the summer, so maybe he'll get picked for that.
Yeah, let's see what Warren Gatland does, basically. Guys, we've come to our end of this particular show, but before we end, we know shithousery moment of the week. Before that, we've got a few news. Obviously, Jaguares might be set to come back to Super Rugby. Apparently, Augustine Pichot is driving that. That might be happening maybe next year or the year after. It seems like they could be taking over the spot where Rebels are currently representing in Super Rugby. We've got also former Springbok World Cup winning coach in Matthew Proudfoot, who's now going to be coaching what's his club? The Leopards in the Currie Cup First Division. Jimmy Gopperth has got his own kicking tees called Jimmy GT. Yeah, weird name. Anyway, so before now we head off, guys, we've got the shithousery moment of the week. I've got a few of those. First one is last week we had the Lions, or we had the Sharks actually announcing the acquisition, the players that they've bought from the Lions, making the announcement a week before the derby. And then the second one is the French players trying to charge down a penalty. That was last week when France were playing Italy. And then the third one that I also noted down, Bongi Mbonambi's comments in the new documentary Chasing the Sun 2. We heard a clip from Supersport where Bongi Mbonambi is calling the English team's energy plastic. That could be a shithousery moment. And then we've got Kenneth Moody, when he tackled Willemse in the derby on Saturday, and Willemse, I think he lost his boot, and then Kenneth Moody basically took that boot and threw it on the sideline of the match. But yeah, Jade and Hugh, which one for you? Which one are you guys going with for this week in terms of shithousery moment of the week? We'll start off
for me, I would say obviously the Caden Moody one. That for me yesterday was real shithousery. He's put away in the derby.
You're gonna have to repeat that. We didn't hear any word.
Ah, shit. Okay, there we go. So I say Caden Moody. I say Caden Moody's one yesterday. That for me was the speak shithousery. Throwing David Willemse's boot away. For me, that's the one I would choose because obviously the Sharks one backfired. And Bongi's one, we've been over that whole Bongi versus England story at the moment. But yeah, the shutout 3 for me would be Caden Moody.
Hugh?
I liked the Bongi one. The thing I liked about the Bongi one was the narrative it creates around the scrum that for some reason pundits are unable to do. The whole the macho-ness of it, that you've got to scrum against us and this is a contest. This is something that only South Africa is able to do for whatever reason. No one in the Northern Hemisphere wants to make the scrum sort of a personal contest. I think if you framed it as it's this guy versus this guy and it's to see who is the strongest type thing, I think that would make the scrum way more engaging. So maybe not for how good it was as shithousery, but just in terms of a moment, I thought it was great.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we've got one each.
Can I say something quickly?
Yeah.
I want to bring this up, and I see we have
your sound is a bit off.
But is my sound off? Can you hear me now?
No, we can hear you, but I mean, I think there's some noise in the background.
Okay, sorry about that. But I mean, and Double Zero said it also. There's a guy called Wildcard, and he does a lot of work in Australia. Please check him out. He's actually awesome. And you know what? I just want to get Hugh's perspective on this because he'd love this. Everybody's talking about the scrums being dead, and we want to liven up the game, and we want to get more ball in play, etc., especially down in Super Rugby. So do you think Wildcard came with this concept of when we have a scrum, why don't we rather have on the commentary a former prop? They talking up the scrum, saying that it's Ethan the Groot versus Ofa Tuanga Fassi, two all black guys going at it, and talking about the scrum, getting everybody excited about the scrum and watching the scrum, instead of people just, it's just a scrum. We don't know which way the referee is going to give the penalty. If it's a line out, maybe saying, right, it's Sam Whitelock against Eben Etzebeth or Sam Whitelock against Russell Monster. Sam Whitelock's won 3 World Cups, and he's the line-out guru against Mostert, who hasn't lost a line-out on his throw this year. Get someone like a Victor Matfield to talk about it. I mean, rugby's really losing that. What do you think about that whole concept coming from this guy Wildcard? It was actually really interesting in what he brought up.
Yeah, I've seen him. I think he does some great stuff. I think there's loads of space. I think rugby content creators need more people like him. There's loads of space for it. It's the kind of thing that football has loads of, so we need to copy that. I think if you're going to have a prop in co-coms, you need to make sure it's the right person, because I interviewed an international prop a few weeks ago, and I asked him, what would you say to someone who's not a prop to watch out for in the scrums? And he said, I don't know. So you need to make sure that you're getting the right guy who can articulate it. I think Alex Corbicero, the former England and Lions prop, he's great. I think he'd be a fantastic person to have in it. I don't know, maybe you need to experiment with some different camera angles as well to get in it. But just generally, I think, rugby seems to be afraid of, and it speaks to a wider society thing without getting all deep about it, that you can't talk in detail in a kind of a nerdy way about things because you assume people will switch off. I think just embrace it, just go full nose about it, and people will keep up, people will learn, and people will understand, and people will enjoy it. I think you've got to put the faith in the audience, to be honest.
Awesome.
Yeah, sounds great, gentlemen. Also congratulations to Siya Kolisi for his nominations for the Laurie Sports Awards. I don't know when those will be held, but should be something that's updated on our timelines sometime this week or probably in the coming weeks. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and thank you to the listeners for tuning in once again to the Rugby Scoop podcast. Will be on Spotify and also on Apple Podcast as well. Guys, thank you very much once again, and see you guys next week. International footy is back. Six Nations rugby is back. Plenty to be talking about next week. Ireland versus England. Hostility already on the timeline. It's going to be epic. All right, gents. Enjoy your Sunday.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Cheers. Cheers, everybody.